Welcome back. In the last segment, I spoke about the importance of the follow-through, making sure that the bullet is emerging from the barrel at exactly the same moment the sights are aligned. And so I alluded to two things. First of all, the follow-through, to make sure that this occurs at the exact moment that the sights are aligned. I described to you the importance of sight alignment and how the critical errors that can occur between the front and the rear sight can damage accuracy. This sight radius, as I spoke of, is very short, and whether it's with a shorter gun or a longer gun such as a rifle. And when I'm talking about a handgun, these same rules apply to a rifle. So when we're talking about open sights on a handgun, if you apply these same techniques to a rifle, you'll be the best shot in the neighborhood. The thing that we have to remember is that the critical distance between here has to be always preserved to be in perfect alignment. There's a paradox associated with shooting and fine shooting, and that is you actually can't hit the target that you're aiming at. That sounds a little peculiar, I suppose, but it's a little secret that all good shooters know. Have you ever known somebody that really can shoot all the time? They're extremely good marksmen, and you know, people who stand in the gallery will say, well, gee, well that guy really, you know, he has a steady hold, you know, he has sharp eyes and things like that. Well, that's not the situation at all. He just knows something about his own physiology that a lot of shooters are not conscious of. I'll show you the target that comes with most gun owners' manuals or books on shooting. This is what is usually described. I'll bring it up closer so you can see. Here you see the classic sight picture. This is the sight picture that most manuals will describe, and this is the way many instructors will describe it to shooters. At different gun clubs even. Sometimes somebody will explain to somebody, this is what you should see when you're shooting. As you can see, the target is in sharp focus, the sights are in sharp focus, the middle post here represents the front sight, and the two outer posts represent the U-notch of the rear sight. And if you can achieve that at exactly the moment of let-off, every single shot, I guarantee you'll be bringing, if your ammo is good enough, you're going to be bringing home trophies every day. But the problem is that we're not made like that. God created us with eyes which are limited in depth of field. We have a depth of field for each range that we're assigned to look at. In other words, if I'm looking at my thumb right now and I'm not looking at anything else, I really don't see anything except my thumb very clearly. I can see all the wrinkles on my old thumb, and I can see the you know, every detail. I can see the hairs on the back of it, but at the same time I can't see the camera right now, other than just I know that the camera's out there and it's indistinct. If I look directly at the camera, I can't see my thumb very clearly. I can see my thumb, but I can't see the detail on it. This leads us to a very common misunderstanding. You actually can't hit the target you're aiming at. If you try to hit the target you're aiming at, if you try to achieve that sight picture right here, in reality you're going to end up with this sight picture right here. And I'll bring this one up. This is what most people, and perhaps this is what's familiar to you when you're shooting. This is the sight picture you're perhaps seeing. You may not be consciously aware of this fact, but I'm bringing it up to you right now. If I'm trying to aim at the bullseye, in other words, if I'm trying to get my target sharp and clear and distinct, and trying to line up my rear sights at the same time, this is the result. It'll happen every time. Now if you look back at this target right here, this is a to scale image of a target at any given range. So if I'm shooting, this is what a target will actually look like from any given range. So if I'm shooting at a 25 foot target, or whether I'm shooting at a 50-foot target, or a 25-yard target, or a 50-yard target, or a 100-yard target, that is the size relationship to the sights. And if I can bring the gun in, you can see, it's hard for me to line this up here, but it'll be on this order right here. Now, right now, the camera is, because the camera wants to focus on the nearest object, the camera is focusing on the sights of the gun. The camera knows better than our own eyes. The camera, because it has automatic focus, selective focus for the prominent object in view, it's automatically focusing in on the blades of the sight, and the target is becoming less distinct. Now, what the camera is seeing is actually this target right here. This is how your eyes should perceive the target in relation to the sights, right there. And now take a good close look at that. You're not seeing a sharp bullseye. What you are seeing is sharp sights. This is the little secret that all good shooters know about, and they're not willing to give up this secret, because if they did, then they would have some serious competition. Most people are unaware of this simple little fact right here. And if I were to explain it in detailed progression, it would be like this. The first object that you should focus on is the front sight. If you're focused on the front sight, there's very often the rear sight will not be quite as sharp and distinct, but that should be in second priority. The rear sight should be in second priority to the front sight. Always the front sight sharp and clear. The rear sight, because it's closer to your eyes, will be in many ways like a peep sight. You'll be looking through it and you will see that distinct. You're looking for always to maintain the same space between the front sight and the rear sight. And third in priority is the target itself. That's the secret to good shooting. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't make any difference whether you can hold that picture steady or not. If you understand that sight relationship, if you understand the necessity of keeping the front sight sharp and clear and the rear sight in focus as much as it will allow, always dependent upon how the front sight is first. The rear sight will just fall into place, and then the target will become indistinct. So you're not shooting at a target, you're aligning your sights. Quite a different thing. When you're shooting at a target, you're focusing on your target, and your sights become secondary. And we're going right back to the first lesson. When the sights become secondary, that creates that error that I spoke of, and it can be quite severe. I spoke of how 1/10 of an inch can put you off at 6 inches at say 50 feet. At 50 yards, it'll be triple that almost. And if you're talking about even a half of that error, the half of that error may be just allowing the gap to close on one side of the sight or the other. In other words, allowing the front and rear sight to just not stay in tune with each other. That can very easily put you around the bullseye without hitting the bullseye all the time. Now, don't suspect that that I'm trying to say that all your shots are going to miss by the same amount. There's statistical things involved here. You're going to be off to one side of the target as much as you are to the other side of the target, or above the target, or below the target within certain parameters. And but the most important thing to remember is that your sights remain sharp and clear at all times. Now I'm going to talk to you about later on in another episode about how to control your gun. But suffice to say that it really does not matter if your gun is wobbling. Okay, if it's doing this, even if it's not wobbling, if it's held dead steady, but if you're allowing your front and rear sight to become misaligned, that's where you're putting your shots off target. If it's wobbling like this, but your sights are staying aligned, then you'll always hit very close to the bullseye or hit the bullseye, because your area of aim wobble is that basically describes nothing more. You can't even see it if you're outside of your own body. If somebody else watching you perceive movement because you're looking down your sights and you can see the actual error. Somebody else looking at you, it doesn't look that unsteady, and in fact it's not. So what will happen is that some of your shots will hit maybe a little high, a little low, a little bit left, a little bit right, but they will stay in the region of the bullseye. As your competence grows, and as your skill grows and your muscle strength is developed, then the area of aim wobble, that amount that you wobble around the target, will be reduced. But let me explain a little bit about this sight relationship, and you really have to understand. I frequently have had students say, well, I see it all clearly out there. Well, they really don't. Whenever you think that you can see your sights and your target clearly, you're dealing with a false hand. That is not the case whatsoever. You cannot possibly see at different ranges with the same clarity all the time. And let me explain this. God gave us, a lens for an eye that works it's the model for the development of cameras. On a dull day, when there's little light, your iris expands and your pupil becomes larger to allow more light to come in. On a bright day, then your iris, that's the colored portion, the iris closes down and your pupil gets smaller and allows less light in. Now there's a situation here where greater light coming into a large iris, to a large pupil, that is actually less depth of field. Any photographer knows if he has a manual focus lens and he wants to take a picture of a particular object and allow the rest of the background to blur out, he opens up the aperture of his camera, which is the same as the iris on our eye. He opens up the aperture, allows more light to come in, and that blurs everything in the background. So it might be some junk in the background he doesn't want to display in his picture. He wants to get a picture of a flower or maybe a child or something. So he opens up his aperture and gets selective focus, and he can zero right in. On a bright day, the problem is that his lens wants to stop down. They call stopping down, and that's what happens with our own eye. When it stops down, then the lens becomes more capable of bringing in objects at various distances, and your depth of field is increased. This is why ranges are typically facing to the north when they're outside, because it places the sun behind you, and on bright days scores will generally be higher because depth of field is improved. I'm talking about shooting with iron sights now. Scopes, it really has less relevance. But when you're shooting with open sights in a competition, brighter sun means that everybody gets a better distinct image of both the sight and the target. But on a duller day, they get less definition because depth of field is reduced. There are ways the shooters have accommodated this problem, and these are little things that illustrate the need for sharp sight alignment. It's very popular for many shooters who shoot this type of competition to wear, even if they don't wear glasses, to wear something where they can hang an aperture in front of their eye, and different size apertures. It's basically a peep sight, so as they look through, it artificially reduces the size of that opening and sharpens their vision. You can actually sharpen your vision a little bit if you just squint. Sometimes just by squinting, you can effectively gain a little bit more depth of field. But that's what I want you to understand more than anything else. Keep this in mind. Your target should be allowed to just phase out. Don't worry about shooting at the target. It'll wander around, and that's fine. You'll see the target, but what you need to see is the front post, number one. The rear sights, as I say, on a bright, sharp, clear day, the rear sights will appear almost in the same focus, perhaps in the same identical focus as the front sight. But in a less distinct day, on a duller day, allow the rear sight to phase out a little bit, but keep that front sight sharp. You should be able to see it just as sharp and clear as that. If it's not sharp and clear as that, if it looks as if it was drawn with chalk, that's where your shots are going, and your shots are going to blow off the side of the paper. Again, this is the target that you do not want to see. This is the image that you do not want to see. And this is the image you want to see. Quite distinct. You want to be able to see the sights at all times. Okay, and we're going to talk about how to keep your breath control, how to keep your trigger squeeze, develop all the physical attributes that are necessary to maintain that, so that when your gun goes off, the bullet will head down range exactly the way you want. Until next time, God bless.